Ladies and gentlemen, thank you to the first Cycle Probo on Liberty.me. I'm here with Alex McCobin from Students for Liberty. My name is Lobo Tiggre. I am the founder of Cycle, you could say, though actually it's a program that has a much longer history. But I wanted to talk with Alex tonight, partly because he's a lot younger than I am and presumably closer to our audience, and partly because he's also experienced a real-world cycle, that is a live event where we've done some teaching in Lithuania in the past, and Alex was there. So Alex, thanks for joining me tonight.
Thank you so much for having me, Lobo. It's great to be able to chat with you.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've crossed paths in person, and I've been wondering whether there's been a beard influence there or not. Well, okay, never mind that joke. It seems we have a little bit of a time lag here. So the purpose of this conversation is to explain a little bit about Cycle to the audience out there and to talk about what it means. And Alex, maybe you not being me and being closer to the audience, you'll have a slightly different perspective, and I hope you'll share that with us. But what I want to tell the audience from the beginning is that, in a way, you can summarize Cycle as being sort of everything you wanted to learn in college, but they didn't teach you. It's almost like maybe there was a secret society or a secret club that you weren't part of, because the professors all have their own agendas and the mainstream all has its own perspective. And either you're a person who sort of gets the liberty philosophy and you tend to be on your own or outnumbered, or you're a person who asks a lot of questions. Maybe you don't have an ism to attach to your name, but you think and you question, and you want more out of what you're supposed to be getting at college than you're getting, or out of life in general than what you're getting. And the people who've been involved in Cycle in the past with me have a lot of experience getting answers to these questions, getting their lives in gear, and doing it with a libertarian flair. And that's actually a really important part of it. It's not an accident. It's a key part of the recipe for success that we want to share. So that's the idea. Alex, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And I think this is a really great event that you're putting on right now, because when I taught at Cycle 3 years ago, I believe, I wasn't entirely sure what I was walking into myself, to be honest. But the incredible thing about Cycle is that it is a combination of both the fundamentals of a free society, making sure that the attendees understand what creates both a free and prosperous world, as well as teaching the tools for how to go out and actually create value in a free society, how you can be an entrepreneur yourself, create business, or create initiatives that are going to lead you to a more productive life, which I think is something that is not taught enough. It's something that students don't have access to nearly enough. And Cycle is one of those few places where you're able to not only learn from incredible speakers on this issue, but meet other individuals who are interested in the same ideas and can be partners with you in initiatives you develop in the future.
Well, there's several points that you mentioned there that I want to touch on, and I hope I remember them all. But I want to say one thing from the beginning, and that is you mentioned potential partners and mentors and help in the future, and that's actually true. There have been a number of past Cycle students that we've helped in a number of ways. Some of them have gone on to have positions at Students for Liberty. Some of them have gone on to become entrepreneurs. Some of them have gotten married and made a home life, different things. And that's all okay, that's all good. But it is true that we care about the students. We're still here to help. We have an ongoing conversation, if you will. And some, I'm not going to offer a job to everybody, but I will say that some former students have ended up working for organizations that the teachers, myself included, work with. Some of them have proposed business plans, and we've been able to finance them. So a lot of things are possible. It's important to understand that this is not just theory, or rather that to the degree that there is theory, there's practice to go with it, and we can connect you with people who can make the most of your theories and applying them in reality in the real world. I also wanted to mention something about what you said, Alex, about going there and not being sure what you expected. That's really what we're here for. And I have a little window to the side, and if anybody is listening to us now live and has a question about what we're doing and what it's all about, we'd be happy to have those, and we'll do what we can to answer them. One thing I want to say is that...
So actually, can I interject real quick, Lobo?
Go ahead.
One of the most interesting things I remembered from the cycle that I was at a few years ago is that either Rick Rule or Doug Casey, or maybe both of them, not only gave talks to the camp, but actually offered to read any proposal that any of the attendees sent over to them, with the opportunity to actually invest in the proposals that they thought were worthwhile. Now, I was already involved with Students for Liberty and had other projects, but I just remember thinking, wow, I wish I had known or had that kind of opportunity back when I was an undergrad or a recent graduate, because that's an unparalleled opportunity that you don't get anywhere else, that investors like Rick Rule or Doug Casey are willing to both read your proposal.
That's true. And again, there's so much we could say about that. It is one of the amazing things that we try to do, and that is, it's, as I was saying, not just theory, but it's practice. And if you have a good enough idea, now, mind you, the idea has to be a good idea. You're not going to raise $100 million for, you know, a lemonade stand on the corner. But if you've really got a good idea, we can connect you with the resources to develop that. And not everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. Not everybody wants to start a business, and that's okay. The entrepreneurial spirit is about more than necessarily creating a business. It can be creating value in a lot of different ways in your life. And I want to stress that we are aware of this. We are aware that not everybody wants to start a business. And it's not just that the lessons of starting a business are applicable in other areas. There are life lessons that we have to share, and we've received that feedback from people as they're registering, and we've actually been discussing this with the teachers as we've lined them up, trying to fill in a schedule that addresses, if not all of the questions that registrants have asked to hear about, then as many of them as we can. So you can think of this as, you know, not just Entrepreneurship 101, but a bit of Life 101, and, you know, everybody can use some help with that.
Or more specifically, if you want to be entrepreneurial but don't necessarily want to start a for-profit, an obvious avenue is to create a nonprofit organization. And the great thing about Cycle is that it gives you a good platform to do that. Both the fundamentals of the principles of liberty that are things that we need more people to advocate, and we need more organizations to advocate, and the experience and opportunity to learn about entrepreneurship, which can translate strategies to turn those ideas into reality.
That was actually the reason why I invited you to talk at Cycle a couple of years ago. My thought was not just, well, here's Alex McCobin, he's talking about liberty, and I love liberty, and I want him to share the word. You know, that's great. But here's Alex McCobin who's doing that, and he's started a nonprofit business. You know, he's in the business of marketing liberty. You know, what a great thing to do. What a great business to do. And he's so young. How did he do that? So that was the whole reason for inviting you out. It was a great story, and obviously Students for Liberty is a fantastic success. You know, what a great thing if more people can do more things like that in various areas, or pitch in with SFL. You know, entrepreneurship, or the entrepreneurial spirit, let's say, is much bigger than just, you know, a better hot dog stand.
Absolutely, and like you said before, we've had a number of people who went through Cycle get involved with Students for Liberty and be some of our best leaders. So whether we're talking about, obviously, Frederick Roeder, who is our Vice President of Operations and Finance, or Agli Markovisiut, or Katya Kudovic, or others, you know, you really do develop the fundamentals of both the ideas of liberty and entrepreneurship at Cycle that you can apply to pretty much any area.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that, and we were certainly glad to have your help in the past, and we're glad to say that Fred is going to be one of our speakers this year, and you know, we look forward to cooperation for years to come, because there's an obvious fit here. And for people who do get excited about the ideas, you know, what a great thing that Students for Liberty is there to give them a home, an intellectual home, as it were, and to help them to carry forward with the ideas that they care about. So we're glad to have your cooperation on this, Alex.
It's our pleasure. I'm glad that you're running this. And I actually should point out, Fred's not with us right now because it's very early in Berlin at the moment, but it's also really early for you, Lobo. What time is it again?
Well, actually, I messed up the time zones. I'm in Minsk right now, in the Republic of Belarus, which is often said to be the last little piece of the Iron Curtain. It's an interesting place to be. I have family here now, as well as a bunch of former students. It's actually a very warm place for me to be. So it's 5 in the morning here, but we just went off daylight savings, and I'm from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico doesn't do daylight savings, so an adventure there that's not really here nor there.
Well, but actually, on that, Lobo, so Cycle used to be this in-person event in the middle of the woods, truly away from most of the rest of civilization. We could barely get internet there. And now it's an online event for anyone to access around the world. Can you tell us a little bit about why you made that transition and how that's valuable for anyone who's considering participating in Cycle?
Well, so actually a little bit of a personal story, though I should say on the history, and I hope our audience will find this interesting, that what is now Cycle actually started quite some time ago. At the fall of the Iron Curtain, there were some people in Lithuania, actually a friend of mine and sort of a great hero of Liberty who's not well known, his name is Virgis Daukas, and he was there when the Lithuanians were, standing in front of the tanks around the TV tower in Vilnius at the end of the Soviet occupation of Lithuania. And after the Iron Curtain fell down, he was liberty-minded, and other people, they wanted to share the ideas of freedom in a part of the world where it wasn't easy to express them before. But it was all sort of alien and different. So they combined that with the idea of teaching English. So they started what they call Liberty English camps. And the International Society for Individual Liberty, which has an unfortunate acronym today, but is a grand old organization that has nothing to do with what's going on in the Middle East, helped out. And this thing started, as you say, very literally as a camp in the woods. There was no internet back then, of course, but what you had was a bunch of eager young people and a bunch of teachers who wanted to share, and that's how this got going. I got involved 10 years ago, more or less, and I found that at that time a lot of the people got the basic philosophy, but what they really wanted to know more about, what their teachers weren't giving them in school, was really practical, applied knowledge of how to be an entrepreneur, how to do business, what even is a good business idea versus just going through the exercises of whatever you see in your textbooks and so on. So I really brought in a lot of the entrepreneurial focus to the program. And to answer your question, quite frankly, I got married in 2013, and suddenly a lot of my priorities got reorganized, and I didn't really have the time or the financing to fly teachers into Lithuania, which I had been helping to do since the crisis hit in 2008. So we decided last year to try doing it online rather than let it die. And it actually worked out better than I thought. I have to say to the audience out there, we have not given up on the real space camps or cycles, and we hope to do one again next summer in Lithuania. We have a lot of excited Lithuanians out there that want us to come back and do that again. And it is my intention to do that again. And hopefully anybody who participates in this year's cycle and wants to meet some of the teachers or come out, talk about these ideas, you'll think about joining us. But I'll tell you, Alex, when we made the switch to online, I was concerned that you wouldn't be able to have the same personal rapport, that you wouldn't be able to help people in quite the same way, because you're not sitting in the same room, you're not sitting around the campfire singing songs and having a beer or whatever it is. But we found that the people who were really interested, they followed up afterwards, they wrote in, and we were able to have discussions, we were able to help people. And that's really significant. That we can do that online is actually an incredible thing. And of course, the plus for being online, the easy and obvious plus, is that it's much easier to get speakers. So even if a speaker is willing to fly out and join me in the woods in Lithuania, well, we now have internet, it's still a long way to go. Whereas if all they have to do is hop online for 45 minutes, we can get speakers who wouldn't normally be available to us. So we have a a much more diverse set of teachers. I was delighted when David Friedman said he would join us this year. He's a personal hero of mine. So to be able to talk with him and share his insights with our students this year is fantastic. So a little bit of a history lesson, but it's also forward-looking there, because I want to encourage those who participate this year to think about whether they'd be willing to travel and join us in Lithuania or elsewhere. I've done these in Romania, I've done them in Ukraine and other places. And maybe we'll do one in the U.S. someday. And also, by the way, there are other organizations that have similar student-oriented events around the world, and you can find those via the ISIL website, and we can help hook you up. Networking is definitely a big part of what CYCLE is all about. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and so I would just also point out that by holding this online, students around the world are able to participate in the camp who wouldn't have been able to if they had to pay their own way to Lithuania or anywhere else like that too, which I think is terrific. You're able to not only accept more individuals, but individuals from more diverse locations as well. And so I'm hopeful that this year's cycle will have more people from new places because it's available online.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. One reason that made Lithuania so favorable before was precisely because Belarus has a famously difficult political situation, and the two countries are nearby, so it was easy to help Belarusians travel to Lithuania, help them out. It wasn't terribly expensive, and share with them ideas that they wouldn't get at their state-run universities in Belarus. But of course, you're right. Traveling around the world for students, if it's hard for teachers, it's even harder for most students. So
Exactly.
Yes, doing it online opens it up to a far wider audience, and we hope that anybody who's thinking about it will participate, because we've got a lot to share. We've got a great lineup of new teachers. And by the way, for graduates, it's always new. I'm always trying to find new and interesting teachers to share different perspectives, new ideas, and help you out.
That's great. So I'm curious, Lobo, what's the session you're most excited about for this year's cycle? Is it David Friedman or is it someone else?
Well, it's kind of like asking a kid in a candy shop, well, where to begin. I am thrilled that David Friedman is joining us, and I have to say, for anybody who hasn't checked it out yet, if you go to the cycle.liberty.me page and you look at the last cycle, which is where we've got the recording links for last year's sessions, you should check those out. It'll give you an idea for what we're doing, and a couple of those were just spectacular. The one by David Galland, my former boss at Casey Research, it was just an incredibly heartfelt, sincere but powerful talk that explained and illustrated, and I thought empowered people in a terrific way. Thank you, invisible gnomes of the internet. Somebody is bringing this up on the screen here. So yes, I want to encourage people to go back and look at those recordings. David Galland, who I'd known for years, just blew me away with his talk. I didn't know half of the things that he said, and it was so moving, it was so powerful and so helpful, I thought. And he's agreed to come back this year. And he knows he's got a tall bill to order to follow up on that act. But I know he's a competitive guy with himself, so I'm sure he'll try. And I really look forward to what he's got to say. And people like Rick Rule and Doug Casey, who are famous, world famous investors, they're not the sort of people the average student's going to be able to meet on a regular basis, daily basis, or any basis at all. So it's always great to hear what they have to say and to be able to have access to those kind of minds.
Absolutely. So if people go to the cycle.liberty.me webpage, looks like you're able to download everything off of last cycle. Is it this button right here?
Yes. Yes.
Great. And take a look at the scheduler lineup here in Cycle 2015, which is great.
Okay. I was hoping we'd get some questions from the audience here, so it wouldn't just be the two talking heads here, because we don't need to beat this to death. but I realized that I wasn't scrolling my chat window here. So if anybody had questions, now would be a good time. If not, Alex, we don't need to go on and on here. The idea is just to communicate to the audience, why we're excited, what we're looking forward to do.
Well, and for us to chat a little bit, it's been a little while.
It's been a while. Yeah, more fun over the campfire. So maybe you'll come out and join us next summer in Trakai again. Traditionally that's our space. We need to go to more different spaces, but when we restart the physical camp again, I'm sure it's going to be Trakai again. It's just such a beautiful place in the world.
It absolutely is. I remember waking up and going swimming in the lake before each day, which was fantastic.
Yeah, that's a little chilly, but it sure gets you up in the morning. I do see one question here in the chat window, and somebody wants to know if there are any new areas that we're covering or new topics. And as I was saying earlier, we have new teachers, and each one is going to cover things that others haven't before. But I will say that I've noticed an uptick in requests for not just libertarian theory or economics, and not just entrepreneurship and business, but a lot more sort of broadly speaking Life 101 type questions, ranging from time management to personal motivation to just the psychology of success and how you get ahead there. So we are looking to add more substance along those lines to this year's lineup and going forward.
Yeah, I really like the diversity of speakers that you have this year. Everyone from Tom Palmer talking about to love the freedom of others, which is a fantastic topic, and Tom is absolutely incredible, all the way to individuals like Rick Rule, Doug Casey, and Peter Jaworski. Peter teaches at Georgetown, and I'm curious, is he going to be talking about his new book with Jason Brennan or something else, or do you not know yet?
I don't have Peter's topic yet, and it's funny how things go around. I remember when Peter was a student, and I was at George Mason University helping raise money for free market students, and Peter was one of the bright stars at the time. So I'm happy to see now he's become a professor, and it's not quite the same thing as getting to chat with David Friedman, but it'd be so great to see what he's up to and what he's got to contribute. If you Google him, or rather if you YouTube search him, he has some really interesting talks. He's a very entertaining speaker. I see another question from the audience. Somebody wants to know how they can get ready for the week. And that's actually a really good question, because if you're stuck in student mode and you're thinking, well, I've got to have my pencil and paper here, I've got to take notes, metaphorically, but of course not. There will be no exam. We're not going to test you. But in some ways, this is much more important than any test you'll ever take. We are bringing a collection of extraordinary minds together to help you in your life and to achieve success however you define it, not how I define it. It's not Papa Lobo's idea of success that you must conform to, or Alex McCobin's pathway to freedom and that we all must follow. It's about enabling you to make the most and do the most along whatever path that you want to do. So I would say the main thing to prepare is actually sort of to do a mental massage. Try to decalcify your brain. Try to get ready for ideas that'll bend your mind or push you in new directions, maybe ideas you haven't considered before, maybe some you don't agree with. And the most positive thing you can do is to sort of promise yourself that I will come to this with an open mind, that I will come to this with an attitude of not wanting to argue or prove the other guy wrong, but to ask, how can I be wrong? How can I get better is really what that question is. And that's what we're here to try to help you do.
Well put, Lobo.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for questions, and I've pretty much summarized what I wanted to say. As I said, we don't need to beat this to death. I want to encourage everybody to prepare to have a fantastic time. I'm personally devoted to this and eager to help as many people as I possibly can. And I know that Alex feels the same way, and encouraging people down the Liberty path, not only getting them there, but helping them once they're there with how to go forward. And I think this is very important, because people who see the world in the way we do, especially once you leave campus groups, they tend to be few and far between. So it's important to know that the resources are there. And I want to stress one more time again that the libertarian angle on this, it's not just an accident, or it's not just, you know, our version or our flavor. I believe that that is actually part of the keys to success that we are trying to put in everybody's hands. And you look at people like Rick Rule or David Galland or Doug Casey. These are phenomenally successful people who have been successful not just because of business acumen, but because of their ideas, because of their understanding of the world. And particularly as investors, these ideas help you to escape the traps and the commonality of the herd thinking, of going along with a lot of investors as they go like lemmings right over the Wall Street cliffs that the, you know, that the manipulators in Washington create for us all. So thinking critically, thinking independently, thinking for yourself, being a little different from the herd is actually an important asset, and this is one of the things that we can show you to maximize.
As I recall, that's actually the very investment strategy Rick Rule and Doug Casey recommend at Cycle during their talks. So that's a really nice preview of what to expect.
That's right. We call it contrarian investing. Okay, Alex. Well, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I really appreciate you being here. And thank you, the audience, for listening now or whenever you watch this. I hope to see you at Cycle 2015.
Thank you so much for putting this together, Lobo.